You know, you see these headlines popping up all the time from the Middle East, and they can feel like totally separate stories. An attack here in the Red Sea, a strike on an airbase over there, a new ground invasion. But what if they're not separate at all? What if they're all deeply connected? Well, today, we're going to connect those dots and show how all these events are pointing to one single conflict that's expanding, and fast.
So that brings us to the big question, right? The one that's on everyone's mind. Is a wider war in the Middle East actually becoming unavoidable? Honestly, the stakes just could not be higher. And the answer is being written right now on battlefields across the entire region.
And look, the evidence on the ground suggests that far from winding down, this thing is actually flaring up in brand new and pretty dangerous ways. So let's start with the first sign of this escalation, the one that's maybe the most visible to the rest of the world. We're going to begin in the Red Sea. This is where a whole series of attacks have hit one of the planet's most important economic arteries. And make no mistake, this isn't just random piracy. Oh no, this is a very calculated offensive, and it has massive global implications. The group behind all this is the Houthis, who are based in Yemen, and they are showing a really frightening level of capability. This isn't just some local militia with old rifles. No, we are talking serious hardware, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, rockets, the whole shebang. They've been hitting not just ships linked to Israel, but international shipping in general. And they've been good at it too, even managing to sink ships in that critical choke point, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And that location is everything. Think about this. 15% of all global trade squeezes through this one little waterway. So when the Houthis start firing missiles here, they're not just kicking off a regional crisis, they are literally putting a stranglehold on a global supply line. This impacts economies all over the world. It affects the price of the stuff you buy. But the real question is, who's helping them do it?
To really get who's behind these attacks, you gotta zoom out. The Houthi offensive isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's actually part of a much larger and coordinated network.
And that network has a name, the axis of resistance. Now you have to understand this concept because it is the key that unlocks this whole puzzle. It's the name for an alliance of militias and political groups all backed by Iran, and they all share one big goal: to push back against American and Israeli influence in the Middle East.
And the structure is pretty clear, right? You've got Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah up in Lebanon, and the Houthis down in Yemen. Now they're all different groups for sure, but they all have one central backer: Iran. So when the Houthis fire a missile at a ship in the Red Sea, it's not some isolated thing. It is one move in a much bigger chess game being played by Iran.
All right, let's move to the second major flashpoint, the second dot on our map. And this one was a recent, incredibly sophisticated, and strategically massive attack on a major U.S. airbase. Okay, so the attack hit Prince Sultan Air Base, and 12 American personnel were injured. But you know, the real story here isn't just that the base got hit, it's what they hit. The attackers were not just firing blind. No, they had a very specific and very smart target in their sights. So why? Why on earth would you target these planes? They're tanker aircraft. They're basically just flying gas stations, right? They don't carry any bombs or missiles. It seems kind of weird. But the answer is actually brilliant from a military perspective, and it all comes down to a key military concept. They are what's known in military circles as a force multiplier. It's an asset that, while it isn't a frontline fighter itself, it makes your entire fighting force way more powerful. So taking them out has this huge ripple effect on your enemy's ability to operate. Military analyst Sean Bell puts it in a way that's just so easy to get. See, modern fighter jets, they burn through fuel like crazy. So without these tankers, a pilot might get one trip, one sortie, before they have to fly all the way back to base. But with in-flight refueling, you can do 3 or even 4 trips on that exact same sortie. You just multiplied your air power without adding a single new jet. And that is why this attack was such a big deal. By taking out these tankers, Iran's proxies might have landed their single most successful punch against American air power in this entire conflict. This is not the move of a group that's about to give up. It's a show of some serious strategic thinking.
Okay, so we've looked at the sea, we've looked at the air, now let's shift our focus to the ground. Because here the conflict is expanding in yet another direction. Israel has launched what is for all intents and purposes a ground invasion of southern Lebanon, and that is opening up a very dangerous new front.
Now, on paper, you'd think this would be a slam dunk for the Israeli Defense Forces. I mean, they have a huge advantage in numbers and advanced gear, but this is turning into a brutal slog.
Hezbollah has had decades to prepare these defenses. They've built these massive tunnel networks and have absolutely littered the area with anti-tank weapons and booby traps. It's like a war on two levels. You have soldiers fighting commandos in these tight claustrophobic tunnels underground, while up on the surface, these giant armored bulldozers are just tearing up the landscape to clear a safe path. This is not a fight that's going to be over in a few weeks. We're talking months.
And the human cost, wow. It's just staggering. The fighting on this new front has already displaced about 1 million people. 1 million. That's 1 million lives just turned upside down. 1 million people forced to flee their homes. It's just a brutal reminder of the devastating impact this expanding war is having on ordinary people.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together now. We've got attacks in the Red Sea, we've got these strategic strikes on U.S. assets, and we have a new ground war in Lebanon. All of it is pointing to a really dangerous contradiction that's sitting right at the heart of this entire conflict.
And this is the absolute crux of the problem. The United States and its key ally in the region, Israel, seem to be on completely opposite paths. America is actively looking for an off-ramp. They're trying to de-escalate to end the fighting. But at the very same time, Israel is doing the exact opposite. They are ramping up military operations, opening a massive new front. This really comes down to different goals. The U.S. wants regional stability so it can focus on other parts of the world, while Israel feels that its own security depends on getting a decisive military victory. And that really brings us to this pretty stark assessment from analyst Sean Bell. A month into this whole new phase, there is absolutely zero sign of this war de-escalating. In fact, everything we've just talked about, it's all pointing in the opposite direction. So that leaves us with one final and pretty unsettling question. You have Iran's allies escalating, you have Israel digging in for a bigger war, and you have the United States trying to pull back, all at the same time. These are incredibly powerful forces all moving in opposite directions. So what happens next? What happens when an expanding conflict smashes into a superpower that's trying to get out? Well, that's the question that's going to define the future of the Middle East.